I'm here in Taipei, Taiwan, where the anti-CCP political party won the country's presidential elections. All eyes are now on Beijing, where the Chinese Communist Party has been threatening war if this political victory were to take place. The recent elections have been a blow to the CCP. The regime exhausted nearly all of its options to interfere with the elections. Military threats to strike fear into voters, trade pressure against farmers, propaganda videos targeting the nation's youth, and many other tactics. The main rival political party in Taiwan, the Kuomintang or KMT, was running a similar narrative to Beijing, saying the Taiwanese election was a choice between peace with China or war with China. Yet none of this was able to sway Taiwanese voters, either internally or externally. On election night, January 13th, my team and I were at the rally for the Democratic Progressive Party, the DPP, which won the elections. Now, during the acceptance speech of the new president, William Lai, he highlighted the fact that this election was not just a victory for his party, but also a victory over the Chinese Communist Party's attempts to interfere with the country's elections.
台湾人民用行动成功抵御外部势力的介入，因为我们相信自己的总统自己选。
After the event came to a close, we spoke with people who had attended, and almost across the board, every person said something similar. The election for them was a statement that Taiwan has chosen democracy over the CCP's attempts to bring Taiwan under communist rule. What does this victory mean for Taiwan?
So we maintain our democracy and we stand for Taiwan. As a Taiwanese, we very appreciate the President Tsai Ing-wen, the previous all efforts she paid, and we support the government.
This is very important because the democracy, we have to continue the democracy. We all know, mainland China has a threat, right? And the other party always want to unite with them. That's okay if they're a democracy country, right? But if they're not, so it's very important for the policy to be continued. It is extremely important.
What the CCP is doing is against universal value. It's against history. It is on the wrong side. And I think Taiwan people have spoken strongly, clearly, and the world is watching with delight.
To see how the elections in Taiwan work and whether there were any signs of foul play, I visited a couple polling stations on the day of the election. Every vote was on printed paper with an official stamp for each voter. Every vote is called out and documented by election workers, and each vote is presented to poll watchers, including police sitting nearby. There is no early voting, no mail-in ballots, and you have to show up in person in your hometown to cast your vote. Now, the process takes a few hours, and election results are announced the same evening the votes are cast. I was personally impressed by the level of integrity and transparency of the Taiwanese election system. All of this was largely done in defiance of the CCP's threats. Most questions from foreign journalists at press conferences, they focused on threats from the communist regime, which notably claims ownership over all of Taiwan. Just prior to election night, the country's foreign affairs minister held a press conference for the journalists who had arrived in the country from all over the world, and he outlined some of the actions that the Chinese Communist Party was taking.
China has been trying to interfere in our democratic elections all along. Ever since 1996, when we ran for the first direct presidential election in 1996, probably many of you still have the memory. During that election, China was launching an overt military exercises around Taiwan, trying to intimidate the Taiwanese voters to vote in certain direction. And that was just one example. It was the start of the Chinese election interference. This time around, the Chinese objectives remains the same. They want to influence a critical minority, especially in a tight race. And they also have their global objective. Their global objective is that they want to use Taiwan as a test ground. If they are able to successfully shape the results of Taiwan election, they will try to apply their tactics on other countries in this year. There will be more than 40 free and fair and democratic elections around the world.
While Taiwan is a fairly small country and has a very large footprint on the world, what is happening here will resonate globally. The island nation of just 23 million people is the 9th largest goods trading partner with the United States. Positioned just south of China and north of the Philippines, it also represents a key strategic location, militarily and for global trade. In 2022, about half of the world's global shipping container fleet passed through the Taiwan Strait. And despite being a vibrant democratic nation, Taiwan is being targeted by the Chinese Communist Party for takeover. The CCP is vowing to take Taiwan either through peaceful means or through war. Taiwan's independence from mainland China was a line drawn in the sand by CCP leader Xi Jinping. And the new president, William Lai's stance that Taiwan is an independent country is regarded by the CCP as an act of so-called separatism and an act of war. Now, on the trade front, the country also produces semiconductors, the chips needed to create advanced electronics from smartphones to missiles. In fact, Taiwan produces about 60% of the world's semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips. These chips have also become a point of contention. The United States has placed sanctions on the CCP, limiting the sale of these chips. And the move is crippling the Chinese regime's push for a high-tech economy and notably stifling its ambitions for next-generation weapons. Taken in a broader context, the fact that the island of Taiwan represents a key strategic location with many geographical features that could turn the tides of a military conflict in this region. And all of these factors have made Taiwan a focal point of the world, not only in the long-running controversy of the CCP's ambitions to seize this country, potentially by force, but also in the growing conflict between the CCP, the United States, and the many surrounding countries in the Asia-Pacific region. How important is Taiwan to the West, would you say? You know, if the Chinese Communist Party were to blockade Taiwan or take Taiwan, what impact would that have on the rest of the world?
Actually, there were the economic assessment about the cost of the blockading, not just war on Taiwan, but blockading Taiwan, how would that cost to the whole world. And according to one estimate, it's about 1.8 trillion US dollars for just 4 months. But I would say that that report, a lot of people, including analysts themselves, believe it's an underestimate. So that we are talking something that's much more. And should the blockade on Taiwan happens, in terms of the global supply on the chip and semiconductors, very soon you're going to see the shortage of those semiconductors, which propel the whole world development today. In Xi Jinping's view, should Taiwan not accepting unification with China, that means Taiwan independence. And he will do everything to crash that. But at the same time that China is losing all the soft power, and the economic attractiveness, so that he had to rely more and more on the coercive hard power. The military definitely is the one that he's using.